what if I told you you are paying much more for your AutoCAD and Revit workstation? Now, most people when they buy a workstation, they kind of go all out sometimes. Like, I want the best possible config and it's like, सबसे latest processor ला लो, latest board ला लो, latest graphic card ला लो, ta-da! But that's not quite how it works. Now let's just go section by section. Starting off with CPU. You need to prioritize higher single core performance. Your multi-threads and multi-cores are not helping you all that much. They do help, but not all that much. Not to the point of considering a threadripper. Just because you're making a workstation for AutoCAD and Revit doesn't mean you need to go for a threadripper. It actually doesn't need it. In fact, if you take a mid-ranger CPU with higher core clock, single core clock, then even higher rate CPU, you will end up seeing better performance on the mid-ranger with higher clock. Yes, it's true. Now, especially if you're working with 2D drafting and light 3D modeling, this kind of CPU with higher core clock, Ryzen 5, Intel i5s or Ultra 285, 265K, whatever, the 5 series or 7 series is more than enough. But if you're working with larger viewports, think of Ryzen 7 and Ryzen 9s because all of them being performance cores versus some efficiency cores over here. So you would naturally ask, is Threadripper and Xeon obsolete now? They kind of are, because for regular workflows, when you're not like heavily just rendering after rendering after rendering, all your work is easily accomplished by 16 core or 24 core processors. You actually don't need those Xeons and the Threadrippers. Plus their single core speed is lower, essentially because they are multi-core monsters. So our advice would be go for an Ultra 7 or a 9700X Ryzen 7. That's about it. You probably don't even need a Ryzen 9. Just one point to note is you're probably better off on being on the latest gen rather than older CPUs. But then again, older CPUs help you save some money as well. So yeah, tough choice. Now, while using AutoCAD or Revit, you actually don't need beefy GPUs. You don't need that 5090. All your work will be done in a 5060. Tops 5070 Ti for 4K stuff. You really don't need those GPUs. However, there's a disclaimer here. Even though I'm saying 5060 or 5070 Ti is good, but if your workflow involves shaded objects, a lot of light coming in, making flybys of an entire estate, then my friend, you need a really good GPU. And some people on the professional side even go for the Quattro setups because their project size is that big. Imagine a 74 building with realistic reflections, multiple objects, multiple floors, and so on. So for that kind of stuff, yeah, you're looking for kind of specialized kind of hardware. But for regular stuff, I mean, it's hard to classify that as a regular workflow. It's still specialized workflow, but then again, you don't need that much of processing power on the GPU side. So up until 4K level of stuff, decent size project, which is not the 74 building or an entire estate and so on, smaller chunks of it, you're probably okay with a 5070 Ti even at 4K. Now coming to the least discussed but probably the most important section of our recommendation is RAM and storage. Now RAM should essentially, bare minimum should be bought around 16 GB. At least, matlab, iske niche you can't go below this. Now we would say start off with 32 with future expansion possible up until 64 or even 128. That's what you should be looking at. Everything's just eating up RAM nowadays. And for storage, always our standard recommendation, 2-tier storage, fast SSD for your apps, for your regularly used projects, for your Windows, and yeah, older storage, cold storage like 4 TB, 5 TB, 6 TB HDDs, depending on how much storage you need. So in conclusion, you don't need to overpay for that i9, for that 5090 and that Ryzen 9. You don't need to. A balanced approach will actually help you and stop you from overspending, save you some money. Now that you've saved you some money, you can actually buy that kind of workstation from us. Thank you for watching.